They built their names on chrome, torque, and tradition. But in 2025, even legends are vulnerable. Dealers are worried. Riders are walking. Here's the brutal truth about why these brands fail. And if you own the last brand on this list, you need to sell it before it's too late. Number 7. Harley-Davidson. Once considered the undisputed icon of American freedom, this legendary brand is now navigating one of its most difficult chapters in history. In the eyes of longtime riders, Harley-Davidson symbolized grit, power, and pride, a steel horse philosophy that roared across the highways and into American hearts. But in today's economy, that image is under serious threat. The challenge isn't just coming from foreign manufacturers, it's coming from within, where prices, technology gaps, and identity confusion are slowly dulling Harley's once unshakable shine. The current entry-level models now often exceed $17,000 once dealer markups and destination fees are added. For perspective, that same amount can buy a fully loaded compact car with advanced safety technology. And for a brand that once courted the working-class American, that's a shift with consequences. The numbers tell one story, but the dealerships are living another disaster. In places like South Dakota, Georgia, and Michigan, floor inventory is sitting longer than expected. Older buyers are aging out of the lifestyle, while the next generation sees Harley as a luxury relic, or worse, irrelevant. Harley's attempts to modernize with electric motorcycles like the Livewire haven't hit the mark. Either too expensive, too isolated, or too far removed from the throaty low-end torque that defines the brand's soul. Meanwhile, longtime customers feel the bikes are becoming too refined, too focused on touchscreen infotainment, too safe. It's a delicate balance to preserve heritage while embracing evolution, but somewhere in the last decade that balance tipped, and not in Harley's favor. Then there's the cultural fracture. Harley's image used to be clear, rebellious, blue-collar, proudly American. But with changing social tides, marketing efforts have softened the edges, aiming for broader appeal, often at the expense of its core demographic. The result? A confused identity that struggles to resonate deeply with any audience. You've got riders in their 60s still buying heritage classics, and new customers in their 30s wondering why a cruiser costs more than their student loans. The platform split between air-cooled V-twins and high-revving, liquid-cooled modern engines has only widened the identity gap. Instead of leading the cruiser world, Harley now feels like it's defending ground it once owned without question. The bigger question is, will Harley survive, and what version of Harley will remain standing in the next decade? A boutique brand catering to niche collectors? A tech-heavy touring company focused on affluent weekenders? Or can they find a way back to the middle, back to the shop floor guys and small-town roads that built the brand in the first place? The next brand had Harley on the ropes until it fractured its identity trying to stay politically safe. We've dug deep into sales trends, and it's clear that some brands are struggling to stay afloat. Did any of these brands surprise you? Drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more industry insights like this one. Number 6. Indian motorcycles. Once considered Harley's fiercest rival, this brand made a roaring return under Polaris. But today, that momentum is quietly slipping. Older riders still respect the legacy, but something critical has been lost. The emotional punch that made the name so powerful is no longer landing where it used to, and the results are starting to show. For many longtime riders, Indian motorcycles used to carry meaning that went deeper than chrome or horsepower. But now, the soul of the brand feels disconnected. The machines are still impressive, but the culture around them is fading. The real issue isn't build quality, parts availability, or even dealer support. It's cultural identity. The logo overhaul triggered visible frustration among longtime loyalists who felt the redesign betrayed Indian's historic roots. That change, combined with marketing that leaned hard into modern visuals and digital campaigns, alienated a large portion of its traditional audience. Riders who once bought Indians for the pride and history are finding themselves uncertain about what the brand even stands for today. In motorcycle culture, that kind of erosion doesn't just hurt, it spreads. There's also the matter of reach. The limited dealership network remains a major bottleneck. Compared to Harley's sprawling support system, Indian still feels like a niche offering in most of the country. That might be fine for boutique brands, but not for one that aimed to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Milwaukee giant. Buyers are hesitant to invest in a touring machine when they don't know where they'll get service 2 states away. This lack of dealer presence creates uncertainty, especially for older riders who value convenience and consistent maintenance access on the road. Despite its struggles, Indian does still offer value in key areas. The Scout is manageable, stylish, and accessible for newer riders. The Chief remains a solid choice for cruisers seeking a mix of performance and heritage. But none of these models are currently strong enough to anchor the brand's future without a deeper connection to its past. And that's where Indian's current path feels most precarious. Without meaningful engagement from core riders, even solid engineering and premium finishes won't stop showroom stagnation. So what happens when a once great challenger loses touch with its identity? Sales slip, brand loyalty weakens, and dealerships in places like South Dakota, Mississippi, and Kansas quietly begin reducing orders. In a market as competitive as American cruisers, that kind of retreat doesn't go unnoticed. It becomes the first sign of a collapse in confidence, not just from buyers, but from the people selling the bikes themselves. Cultural damage is one thing. The next brand went straight to the edge of bankruptcy court. Riding's only half the story. Gear matters too. We picked our favorite gloves, tools, and jackets. You'll find them all in the description. Number 5. KTM. Among performance enthusiasts, this brand once carried a reputation for sharp edges and high-performance thrill. Known for its aggressive styling and racing DNA, it captured imaginations across Europe and made a loud entrance in the American market. But beneath the paint and power, cracks in the foundation were spreading fast. The high-risk, high-reward strategy that pushed KTM into global attention turned into an unsustainable burden once the market shifted. Older American riders who once considered KTM's dual sport or street fighter offerings now find the name a cautionary tale of doing too much, too fast. By 2024, the parent company had entered financial restructuring. Development cycles were halted, engineers were laid off, and planned expansion in Latin America and parts of Asia was shelved indefinitely. On paper, the models still looked competitive, but the financial engine powering them had seized up. In the United States, dealers quietly began trimming back inventory. Warranty support and parts distribution became increasingly inconsistent, and confidence began to evaporate even among brand loyalists. Without a reliable service network and with no new innovation on the horizon, interest quickly withered. The collapse wasn't just about numbers. KTM's identity, edgy, experimental, always pushing the limits, no longer aligned with the needs of older American riders. What was once thrilling began to feel unstable. Touring riders in particular require reliability, long-term parts availability, and a support ecosystem. KTM never built that foundation in the United States. The brand could win a race, but it could not win over the kind of rider who prefers steel frame stability over track day adrenaline. And when those buyers turned away, there was no fallback. Many KTM models require intensive maintenance and a familiarity with high-strung performance machines. That learning curve is steep, and for older cruisers, the trade-off simply was not worth it. Combined with a relatively thin dealership presence outside urban centers, the barrier to entry became too high. The bikes themselves might be mechanically fascinating, but if support is delayed and customer service becomes a gamble, the purchase loses all appeal. In markets like Texas and Montana, dealers began letting the brand go completely, swapping floor space back to more dependable names. The real tragedy is that KTM had the engineering to compete. The company pushed boundaries in electronic aids, suspension control, and lightweight design. But those advances needed deep pockets and long-term planning, which disappeared the moment financial stability cracked. A failed expansion into emerging markets only accelerated the spiral. Margins collapsed, units stalled, and the brand's aggressive edge became a liability rather than an asset. KTM's high-stakes bet on global domination ended with a hard truth. Performance alone doesn't pay the bills. KTM's collapse was public, but the next one buried itself so quietly, most forgot it ever built bikes. Number 4. Victory. There was a moment in the early 2000s when it looked like the American cruiser world was about to shift for good. That moment had a name: Victory. Backed by Polaris, the same company now behind Indian, Victory motorcycles emerged not as a retro rebirth, but as a bold new take on what an American cruiser could be. No chrome-soaked nostalgia, no decades-old engineering repackaged for modern buyers. Victory was different. It was clean, fast, fuel-injected, and fearless. For riders who respected Harley but didn't want to live in the past, Victory felt like a revolution. But like many revolutions, it didn't last. Victory launched with serious intent to go head-to-head with Harley-Davidson on American soil. And for a while, the numbers made sense. Sales climbed, riders noticed, dealerships committed. Bikes like the Vegas Kingpin and Cross Country Tour weren't just competent. They were often better engineered with stiffer frames, more powerful engines, and smoother fuel delivery than their Milwaukee counterparts. Victory's Freedom V-twin engine platform delivered torque without drama, power without pretense, and most importantly, it worked. Maintenance was simple, reliability was solid, and for performance-focused cruiser riders, the value was hard to ignore. So what went wrong? The answer isn't mechanical, it's cultural. Victory never fully became part of the conversation. In a world where motorcycle brands live and die by identity, Victory always felt like the well-meaning outsider, technically impressive, but spiritually disconnected. It had the bikes, but not the soul. Riders respected Victory, but they didn't fall in love with it. There were no iconic movie moments, no historic race wins, no Sturgis lore legends, just excellent engineering and quiet competence. Unfortunately, that's not what sells motorcycles in America. Then came the real blow. In 2017, Polaris made the call to discontinue Victory altogether. It wasn't a headline-grabbing scandal. There was no fiery collapse, no mass recall, no lawsuits. It was a spreadsheet decision. Polaris had acquired Indian and decided to focus all resources on revitalizing the older, more culturally resonant brand. Victory, despite all its potential, was shelved to make way for a deeper investment in heritage. The result? Thousands of riders left holding motorcycles from a brand that no longer existed overnight. That discontinuation came with serious consequences. Dealership support disappeared. Parts availability became inconsistent. And while Polaris pledged long-term service support, many owners found themselves scrambling for answers. Resale value dropped hard. The used market dried up. Some riders held on, loyal to the ride quality they loved. Others traded in, frustrated by the uncertainty. Victory, which once looked like the future of American V-twin power, became a ghost almost instantly. What stings the most is how good these bikes were. The Cross Country could eat highway miles with comfort and confidence. The Highball had real attitude. The Vision, love it or hate it, was one of the most ambitious touring bikes ever designed by an American company. But ambition without support is a lonely road, and in a market that values long-term security, Victory's sudden disappearance proved fatal to its legacy. Victory didn't fail because it was bad. It failed because it didn't belong to anything bigger than itself. And in the motorcycle world, engineering is only half the battle. The next brand tried to build on legacy, but collapsed under the weight of betrayal. Number 3. Norton. There was a time when the name Norton could spark admiration in even the most die-hard Harley crowd. It was a brand that carried deep heritage, racing DNA, British flair, and a spirit of mechanical rebellion. But that legacy took a brutal hit in 2020 when Norton's story went from vintage glory to full-blown collapse. The brand didn't just suffer declining sales or shift out of step with modern demands, it was ripped apart from the inside. What followed wasn't just financial ruin, it was a scandal that shattered consumer confidence and sent shockwaves across the motorcycle world. In the lead-up to its implosion, Norton's leadership was accused of serious financial misconduct. Customers who had placed deposits on bikes were left empty-handed. Some bikes were never delivered. Others were assembled with poor quality control or never completed at all. Former employees came forward alleging unpaid wages and unsafe working conditions. It wasn't just a brand failure, it was a betrayal. For a company built on reputation, this kind of damage was more than monetary. It was personal. Riders who had long respected Norton now viewed it as a cautionary tale. The acquisition by TVS Motors, an Indian automotive giant, brought hope. There was money, there were announcements, there were headlines. But what hasn't followed, at least not consistently, is product. Norton's modern lineup, including a revamped V4 and new Commando variations, has faced delay after delay. Factory changes, production hiccups, and a need to rebuild the entire trust framework from scratch have slowed everything to a crawl. In a market that's driven by momentum and credibility, that delay might be more dangerous than the scandal itself. What's particularly heartbreaking for longtime fans is that Norton's design language still turns heads. The bikes look right, they sound right, and under the right hands they perform well. But for many riders, the brand's comeback feels incomplete. It's missing something: certainty. There's no clear guarantee that this revived Norton will remain stable, accessible, or even available in most American regions. The lack of dealer presence and unclear servicing channels only amplify those concerns. For older American men who grew up admiring British iron, the hesitation is understandable, and for now it remains unresolved. That uncertainty leaves Norton motorcycles in a strange place. They are admired but not bought, discussed but not ridden, remembered but not trusted. For a brand that once shared the global spotlight with Harley and Triumph, it's a steep and tragic fall. Dealers that once showed interest in carrying the new bikes have scaled back, citing delays, nervous buyers, and too many unanswered questions. Legacy alone won't move units. In this market, delivery, support, and transparency matter more than ever, and Norton has struggled on all fronts. Some brands collapse in scandal, others fade from memory. This one is still standing, but only just. Number 2. Moto Guzzi. Among riders who appreciate motorcycle heritage, the name Moto Guzzi still carries a certain weight. It's one of the oldest continuously operating motorcycle manufacturers in the world, a brand that's been crafting bikes since the early 1920s with unmistakable character and a unique transverse V-twin design. For decades, Moto Guzzi appealed to a very specific kind of rider, someone who valued individuality, tradition, and the kind of mechanical honesty that modern brands often sacrifice. But today, that legacy is in serious trouble, especially in the United States. That's part of the issue. While the engineering has a certain old-school appeal, it now feels more like a liability than a selling point. Modern riders expect sharper handling, better tech, and more responsive engines even from their retro-styled bikes. Moto Guzzi was late to the party with modern updates like ride modes and digital displays, and when those features finally arrived, they were grafted onto platforms that still felt stuck in an earlier decade. For seasoned riders who remember the golden years of Moto Guzzi, that's a letdown. For newer riders, it's not even on the radar. Another major blow to the brand's presence in the United States is the increasingly scarce dealership support. While Harley and even Indian maintain networks across the country, Moto Guzzi's footprint has nearly vanished in many regions. That leaves potential buyers with nowhere to test ride, nowhere to get service, and no confidence in long-term ownership. For older American riders who take cross-country trips or rely on service centers to keep their machines running smoothly, this is a non-starter. No matter how beautiful or unique a bike is, if you can't find support when something breaks down, it's not worth the risk. Even more concerning is that production output remains low. The brand produces fewer than 10,000 motorcycles annually, a number that pales in comparison to the giants of the industry. This is partly due to its boutique positioning, but it also reflects broader decline. If Moto Guzzi cannot scale production or reinvigorate demand, its operations may simply become unsustainable in the long run. For those who grew up watching Moto Guzzi machines roar across European roads or parked with pride at small-town American rallies, it's a difficult shift to witness. That's not to say there's no charm left in the lineup. The V9 and the California models still offer elegant designs and a smooth, unique engine note. But charm alone doesn't sell bikes anymore. Not in a market driven by performance specs, tech features, and broad dealership support. Nostalgia is powerful, but it can't make up for spotty parts access, slow development cycles, and shrinking relevance. Without serious investment and a clearly defined future, Moto Guzzi risks fading into a historic footnote rather than continuing as a living legend. There's only one name left, and it might be the most painful to watch fall. After researching consumer reports and market shifts, we can see a pattern of uncertainty across the industry. Which brand do you think has the best chance of bouncing back? Share your thoughts in the comments and be sure to subscribe for more analysis of the brands that are fading away. Number 1. Buell. There was a time when Buell was seen as the future of American sport riding, a bold homegrown alternative to the dominant European and Japanese players. Founded with engineering grit and performance-first innovation, Buell captured attention by doing things differently. The bikes were fast, raw, and unapologetically unique, and for a while it worked. But years of uncertainty, shifting ownership, and inconsistent production schedules have slowly worn away any mainstream confidence. Once under the Harley umbrella and then spun off, then revived, then dissolved again. Buell's history reads like a cautionary tale in how not to handle a performance brand. The specs are impressive, the design language is aggressive, but none of that matters when riders can't find a dealership or service technician within several hundred miles. That lack of physical infrastructure continues to be Buell's Achilles heel. There is no robust dealer network, no showroom presence in small towns or mid-sized cities, and no nationwide warranty support system. Riders accustomed to Harley's coast-to-coast reliability or Indian's steadily growing footprint are understandably cautious. And for older riders who prioritize peace of mind as much as performance, that hesitation is deal-breaking. The bigger problem, though, is brand memory. Buell's name doesn't carry weight for today's buyers the way it once did. The newer generation of sport riders is more familiar with Aprilia, Triumph, or KTM. Even among longtime Harley enthusiasts, there's confusion about whether Buell is still around, still relevant, or still worth following. And because the company never truly had a cultural breakthrough moment, no Sturgis dominance, no Hollywood feature bike, no clear-cut identity, there's little left anchoring the brand to its origins. What remains is a set of fast motorcycles with nowhere to land. Manufacturing has resumed, and the machines themselves are more capable than ever. But that doesn't mean the market is ready. In states like Arizona, Kentucky, and Idaho, inventory sits idle or arrives in limited shipments, if at all. Riders are hesitant to take the plunge on bikes from a company they perceive as volatile or unproven. Without a strong resale track record or visible community of riders, even the most loyal buyers are thinking twice. And unlike the Harley market, where bikes hold value due to heritage and tribe, Buell has no such cushion. From lost identity to shrinking support systems, it's clear that even legends aren't immune to decline. If you found this video insightful, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the motorcycle brands that are on the brink.